And of course, the shooting that just happened in Colorado Springs at Club Q is very near and dear to the both of us, because both of us know people that were in that club and were involved in that in some way. And just, I don't even have words, and I'm not sure how to even start this and where to go with it exactly. Although we've just been talking about it and feel like we need to, I don't know, just address this somehow. And I mean, what words can we possibly say? I mean, because one of the most important things for the both of us, and the reason why we make these videos, is we want to instill hope to everyone out there and instill hope to the world that when such a tragedy like this happens, sometimes and I know I've been asking myself that question. It's like, no, how can you have hope, especially if somebody who had experienced something so brutally traumatic as that, especially if you're a family member who lost somebody in that, or if you're one of the injured people that's still laying in a hospital bed because of that. I mean, what do you say? I mean, what are the words? And what do you do? I mean, so with that, I mean, where do we really begin? And that's kind of been what we've been thinking about, and I guess a point of struggle, if you will, because I mean, it all seems so hollow in a way when something like that happens. I mean, of course, we live in a city that had Columbine many years ago. We had the Aurora Theater shootings. We had the King Soopers that's not even too far from here that took place not terribly long ago. That's just here in Colorado. It doesn't get into what's been going on in the rest of the country and, of course, the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do we say? I mean, where do we even begin? I mean, we talk about loving and supporting, but what do we say to people in the middle of all of this?
Oh, today's such a
just trying to
day.
I mean,
it's a lot to feel.
It is. It's a lot to feel.
It's a lot to feel.
A lot to take in, and I guess something that comes to mind is just trying to put it out there that even though we're maybe miles apart, you're not alone in this.
No.
There's a lot of people that are feeling with you with this, empathizing with you through this, and that you're not alone.
One of the things that Rex and I were talking about earlier is, you can't make things up. There's really no such thing as coincidence. And I was getting dressed today for our video, and for some reason I was called to wear the dress I have on. And I couldn't figure out why. Like, why am I being led to wear something rather than choosing something? Like, I felt called to wear this. Then as I was getting dressed, and I already knew what I was going to wear, and we were just thinking about today and just kind of processing through all this stuff going on with the shooting and just with everything, right?
Right.
I realized this dress came from the store in Boulder that someone I really care about owned. And she was killed in the shooting in Boulder at the King Soopers. And I still haven't fully processed Lana's transition out of this life into the next, only because it's a mass shooting, and I can't process mass shootings because they're never supposed to happen. And it seems
there's something incredibly unnatural about it, yet it does all too often, but yet there's obviously something so incredibly unnatural about this whole thing, and
right.
Yet here we are.
And I feel like it's been long enough now, and I should maybe feel different than I do. And I realize there's also no such thing as expectations when it comes to healing.
And how do you feel exactly? Can you put it into words?
I feel like I will not heal ever from the impact of any mass shooting until there are no more mass shootings. And it took this shooting in Colorado Springs this weekend for me to have that realization, like, why does this feel unresolved? That's why. Because this should never happen. And until this doesn't happen, I won't have closure. And that's someone I plan to meet months before moving to Colorado. We already planned to meet. So a few days after moving here, we finally met. I didn't learn about the store after moving here. I had planned that store, and I planned to meet Lana. It wasn't coincidental at all. I had planned to meet her. And I learned about her from the festival and burner community in Houston. Her reputation far exceeds Colorado, and the love people have for her exceeds that. And the impact, and Oomba Love is the store. Oomba Love is on the Boulder, in the Pearl Street Mall. It's in Boulder, and please go. Everybody go there. I miss her dog. I miss seeing him there. There are a lot of things. It's a lot to go into. And it is going to always be a lot to go into until mentally ill people stop making decisions that change the world and change other people's
in the worst
lives.
possible ways.
Causing so much
tragedies.
harm. Mental illness is understandable. I'm a mental health professional. There's no shame in having invisible disabilities. But why are the people who need to listen
We turn it into hate.
not listening to the person who's ill, or listening to the family or the friends,
Or noticing the
stepping up?
signs that are all over the place.
Right.
This could be
Right. When family and friends step up and say, you need to hear what I'm saying about this individual because I love them and I care and I'm concerned, where are the listeners who can make a difference? Why do they not care enough to listen?
hence preventing something like this from even happening in the first freaking place.
The gun that was bought for the King Super shooting is 2 miles from where we're sitting right now. We went to the shopping center tonight where it was purchased.
Okay.
And the person who did that lives 1 mile from where we're sitting. And here I am in the vicinity saying, I'm right here and I can help. Yet nobody reached out. And I know that the family of the shooter for this weekend tried to get help for that individual.
They did.
Over and over and over.
And apparently there was a number of, but I guess I don't know the correct terminology, but like red flags to this individual even being allowed to purchase a gun, and yet was still able to.
There are many facets of what is allowable and allowed, which I think needs serious re-examination. Because when the people who can make a difference are stepping up saying, I'm trying to make a difference here, and I want to make a change, and I want to do something different, I want to do something better, I see this person's hurting, I see they need help, I'm stepping up and I want to help. Where are the listeners? That to me is where the accountability fails. Like that, it falls in that space. The people close are doing things right in many of these occasions, not all of them, but in some of them, like
There's
this
something
one.
in this case, the effort was made.
The effort was made. And the people who listen weren't listening. The people who need to listen, the people who are in position to listen.
The positions of power who can make the difference and have the potential to be able to prevent something like this before it even happens.
You know, we had a conversation tonight about somebody we know who, where are the listeners?
Right.
There's a lot of concern.
You know, I've got a friend of mine that was literally in the theater when the Aurora shootings happened. I forget what year it was, but it was a handful of years back. And it's been a little while since I haven't spoken to her about what happened here, but I remember us having a conversation, and she's one of my very dear friends. And I remember her explaining to me that every time she hears about something like this happening, she described to me being in the theater, what it was like, the gunshots, the screaming, the running, seeing people dropping, the whole thing. She just described it to me in some crazy detail, but like I was almost there. I've been through a lot of crazy stuff in my life and seen a lot of crazy stuff, and even all I could do not just break down in tears because I didn't know how to react to this. And one of the most telling things that she said to me was, you know, every time something like this happens, it triggers me, and I can't help but go back to this space when I was in that theater, remember what it was like and what I went through, being right in the middle of all of that, And I can only imagine what even she must be feeling, even though she wasn't obviously in the club when this happened. But it's somebody like her who's been through this kind of an experience, and if there's anybody who's been in that, regardless of what's here, or like the Uvalde shooting that I think also in Texas, I think, and so many other examples of these shootings, I can only imagine the trauma that every time one of these events happens. I mean, how can you ever let go and get over something like this? Or I don't even know if you can get over something like this, but make some kind of a peace or let go. I'm losing my words, but I'm getting emotional. But the point is, like I say, how can you work through this until it finally stops? And for my friend, I mean, I know she's going to live with this for the rest of her life, and as long as these events keep happening, I know she's going to keep being triggered by this and reliving her own nightmarish experience in that Aurora theater that night. But I can't help but empathize, just because I've seen horrible, ugly things, including gunshots, and I've even seen people be shot and things like that. And I'm not going to go into any of that. I mean, this is not about me by any stretch, because there's so much more important things going on, and so many more people that are in pain over these recent events. But at the same time, going even all the way back to Columbine, which has now been quite a long time ago, I don't think our community's really ever quite healed from that. And you can only imagine the people that were in the middle of the school all those years ago. They're full-grown adults now, still reliving this in their minds every time something like this happens. I mean, I can't even process this, and I'm just here talking about it, let alone, of course, part of it for me is I actually knew some of the people that were in that Club Q that night. I actually knew some of the people. I haven't talked to them yet, but I can just imagine how they're feeling right now and what they're going through, how traumatized they must be.
Right.
And what do you say to a person about that?
You can't even reach out because it's too soon.
Absolutely.
We don't want to bombard somebody who's in trauma state, yet they know we're here.
Right.
They know we're here and we care.
I mean,
and at what point do we even reach out? At what point is it appropriate?
I say that's one of those organic things. You just like when the opportunity happens,
right.
We take the opportunity when it presents itself. But until then, I mean, just send love from afar. And we try to do our best, like right now. We're talking about this in a video because it's so important to us, and it means so much to us. And at the very least, to let everybody know that, like I said just a moment ago, you're not alone. There are people that are with you, thinking about you, sending love to you, healing, and I mean, whatever little thing we can do from a distance until that opportunity presents itself to where perhaps we can be face to face and interact in a way that hopefully is a little more meaningful.
Right, and we both work with trauma, but in completely different ways. Talking about this, I want to get physically more comfortable. I'm going to take my boots off.
Of course.
Which normally I would just, it's a camera, I keep my shoes on. Right now I'm just like, nope. Comfort is more important.
This could be a conversation, could be a few here,
Yeah, no, I need to be a little more comfortable because this is a really difficult and uncomfortable thing for us to talk about. The whole country's talking about it because
I think the whole world at this point is probably talking about it.
Because it happened again. It happened again in the U.S. It happened again
here in Colorado. This is such a beautiful place with so many beautiful people.
Beautiful.
There's so much about this place I absolutely love. Yeah. And again, it just shows you it can happen anywhere in the freaking world. Anywhere. Big town, small town, anywhere.
And people who follow me on social media know a lot of times I'm between Texas and Colorado. So that being said, when there's a shooting in one place or another, you might know some people involved. With Uvalde, I have a friend whose 9-year-old cousin was killed there. And this isn't just a friend, this is like a friend that I talk to about once a week. Like somebody I'm really in touch with. Now, let me explain the situation to you. We're looking at a systemic issue here. This is really important. He's getting his master's in mental health care, psychology. When the shooting happened, he needed time off his school and internship to be with his family to grieve, to attend the services, to attend the memorials, to attend the funeral. The school and the internship both said no. They would not give him time away from school to be with his family, to get the support he needs to grieve. They would not allow him out of internship to get the time away to be with his family to grieve, to process the death of a 9-year-old, his cousin. He has been heartbroken. He could not regulate his emotions. He needed mental health support, which he was not allowed to get because he couldn't get the time because of school and his mental health program to get the care he needed. Then he plays in bands. He plays in 2 metal bands. He's incredibly gifted. And he had to take a break from, get this, music. Right? His
One of the most
his
healing
healing
things we have in our
force.
lives, music especially.
Right. He had to take a break from both bands for a while to find extra time for his self-care.
Did he have to
when
drop out of school?
Music is his self-care. No, he's too close to finishing.
So she's gutting it out.
Then there's another layer on top of that. There's another layer on top of that. A month ago, he tried to reach his best friend, who's also the love of his life. Couldn't reach her, went to her apartment and found her body.
Oh, jeez. And what do you say?
I want to shake the school and be like, are you listening to what mental health care is? You're providing a graduate program. What do you think it's supposed to look like? He can't get time off.
I mean, the thing is that's really
How cruel. How cruel. So systemically, where are we as a country in providing mental health services to the mental health providers? Without mental health providers, the public's not getting mental health support. But without mental health support, sometimes the providers can't do what they're called to do. So where's the mental health care?
And this is a big step backwards because I remember a time where workplaces,
I
schools
sailed through
allowed
that.
bereavement time. This was something that was a very real part of any career you were a part of. I mean, if you're a student someplace, bereavement was always included. It was always something that always took into consideration. How is it not a part of that process now?
Right.
Especially considering the state of everything going on in the world and how often this seems to keep on happening. I mean, you're right. Where is the support, especially in the mental health community? Where is the support?
I mean, this is where people learn. Graduate school is where people really learn how to step up and be good mental health professionals. The example, the role models,
This is what they're training
are
themselves
the
for.
deans, the professors, the instructors. And as an entire system, they say you can't get mental health support as a student during a time of
We can't even give you
absolute
time.
crisis.
Can't even give you time to process
No, I
this.
don't give you time. You're not getting any time off. You can't even see your family. You can't even be with them. No, that's your problem. No, but make sure you don't miss any internship. Make sure you attend all your classes. You don't get any extension on any of your exams or any deadlines for your papers. No extensions, no extra favors, nothing.
Can't miss that test. Better make sure that paper's turned in on time. I mean, go to the funeral. I mean, like I said, be with the family. It doesn't even time to just, gosh, like I say, process through it, cry. I mean, the grieving. I mean, we've all been through that. Everybody, we know we need time, especially when somebody you really love has just passed, especially in such a tragic way. I mean, we know this. We all need time. Every one of us.
Every one of us.
You don't snap your fingers and go, no problems, get back to work.
Yeah.
Come on. That emotion is just way too heavy, and it's the worst thing you can do is stuff that under for any reason. You've got to let that out. You've got to have a means to do that and the time to do that.
Right. So, last week we talked about grief.
Right?
But here we are in a process of pre-griefing. Is that a good way to phrase where we
That's a
are?
good way to phrase it, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I don't think I am going to have freedom to grieve until mass shootings stop.
I think it's going to go for a lot of people. I think it's going to go for a lot of people who are affected by this. I mean that's the thing. That's what's kind of frustrating to hear you say that, because I know that's true for you, even me, and it's going to be true for so many people out there. I mean, I know that anybody listening to this video and hearing this conversation is going, yeah, I get it, I relate to that, and I feel that. But then, where's that opportunity? Where's the time?
Right.
Where's the support?
Now, the way I found out about the shooting was through a friend of ours who's a DJ. And I'm not mistaken, was DJing at Triangle that night. I
It's
could
also
be
in Colorado
wrong.
Springs. It's also in the
No,
Springs.
that's here in Denver.
Oh, the Triangle in Denver. Okay.
Triangle
Sorry,
in
I'm
Denver.
thinking,
That's
I was
okay.
thinking of a
No.
different club.
Yeah, Triangle Denver. So it's a club based around queer community in Denver, If I'm not mistaken, that is where that person was DJing that night. And I saw the post and read that, and I was like, oh my God, this can't be true.
Yeah, I did the same. I didn't see the same post. I saw it,
And then I turned on the
just
TV,
blown away, just blown
and
away.
I turned on the TV to international news, and it was on. It was on because the whole world knew. And the first thing I thought of was you and some of our other DJ friends and people in music and people we know in club community. And when I say club community, let me specify what that is. So goth community,
And you said burner community is part of
burner
that.
community,
Even kind of
queer community.
queer community. Some of the fringe lifestyle, like
Yeah.
fetish community.
Exactly. They all kind of transcend. They all kind of go together. And
And it's all very supportive. It's all like a big
it
family.
is.
And
Yeah,
it's a
everybody
wonderful
knows
thing.
everybody among all the groups, because if you're in belly dance, you also know the burlesque dancers, you also know the fetish performers, you also know the drag
The
performers.
fire performers and all that.
Yeah, exactly, the fire performers. And then you also know people in meditation and yoga community, and then that brings in a lot of burner and a lot of, I mean, everybody just, it's all cross-cultural and it's all love.
It is.
And, you know, tonight we were listening to the interview of one of the people who
Wow.
helped.
That brought down the gunman. Listening to him talk about that.
It was him, his wife, and his children who were at the club that night, Saturday night. And if I'm not mistaken, didn't he say he served 4 tours in
I don't remember how many
military
tours, but he
service?
did serve
in the Middle
and
East.
did certainly trained. But
4 tours of active, you know, I mean, he was
well,
in
the point is,
combat.
he's been through this. I mean, he's lived through this already.
Yes.
And thankfully, his skills, his training,
And all he could think
actually
of was
served
keeping
and
his
actually
kids.
probably kept a lot of people from being killed and injured because of what he did.
And he thought of his wife and his kids who were right there with him at the club. They
Just
all
watching
went
a show
through
they were
a drag
enjoying.
performance.
And watching him, his emotions, him tearing up. I mean, again, I couldn't help but just feel his feelings. And again, I'm sitting watching this, just
Right.
again, got tears in my eyes, going, "Oh my gosh!"
And then
Trying to imagining myself, what would I do if I was in that situation? And just, oh.
right, and then one of the people, and I don't know anything about the people who were killed, but
I
except
haven't seen
one
the-
of
I
them,
haven't seen the list of names yet.
I did, and one person, she was there with her long-term boyfriend. They had been together for many years. I don't know, 3 or something, and they were a really young couple, early 20s. And one of the people in that couple died in the gunfire. I mean, obviously, this is a people club that is supporting all communities, all lifestyles, all human rights. I mean, this is,
But that's the whole idea. I mean, everyone's accepted. I mean, no matter how,
where's
how,
love?
I guess mainstream you may be, however cutting edge and the fringe of society you may be, however different, unique you may think about. Everyone's accepted. Everyone's loved. Just come and be yourself. Come and be real. Enjoy the music. Come dance. Enjoy the shows, and be yourself. Express yourself as you
That's
choose.
right.
And the thing is, you do this without nobody hurts anybody.
That's right. Yeah, whenever we go out, I was out Saturday night dancing at a club that was an hour and a half drive from the club where the shooting was, right? And I'm out dancing just thinking, wow, it's so good to get out and dance and move and be in community and be with these people and hear music I really like and be with, DJs who are friends and people I genuinely care about and to be at a table with friends and to get to meet new people, and it just how wonderful that was, and to see a blend of
It's a
all
gift to
kinds of
experience
community.
that.
And yet at the exact moment I was consciously aware and thinking that this was happening down the street, like
Right.
literally down I-25. I had no idea. And then I learned from our DJ friend. Then I turn on international news. Then I'm, and as I said, I think if I'm not mistaken, that friend was DJing that night at the Triangle.
Right.
It is such a small world. You just can't make this up. And yeah,
I mean, it's the makings of a horrible movie. I mean, gosh, horrible story. It's just.
yeah.
I mean,
This
that didn't
is-
even do justice. I mean, the words just so fail. I mean, I know we're having this conversation, but just, I don't know. I mean, the words just fail. Like, what do we say? I mean, Shana and I, it's so important to us to reach out to the world and find ways to instill hope and instill that the possibilities for change really do exist. But for crying out loud, what do you say when,
Right.
especially to the people who are in the middle of all of this and have experienced this and lost people? You know, for me, you know, I actually had discovered it, you know, when I was looking at Facebook, and I'd heard something about this when I, in terms of just reading through news online, and I was like, okay, wait a second, and I heard about a club in the Springs, but I didn't know quite which club it was. And I get online and I see, you know, how sometimes people mark themselves okay when a hurricane happens or a disaster happens,
Right.
and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that club, and several of the people that
Yeah.
mark themselves as okay, thank goodness they're okay, but it's like, I knew these people, I've hung out with these people, and it's like, oh my
And
gosh,
you lived in
do
that state
I lived in
town.
Colorado Springs. And I'm just like, and like I said, I haven't seen the list of the people who are injured, who are killed, and I'm wondering, do I know some of these? Because I haven't seen the list yet, and I'm just like so concerned that, oh my gosh, do I know these folks? And then again, what can I do if I do? And like we talked about earlier, that I guess I just wait for that right moment, because I know they're probably overwhelmed right now. I don't want to just come blasting in there and just try to be all things at all times to somebody that may just not be ready. Let them have their time, and when I have the opportunity, when you have the opportunity,
Right.
and maybe we see some of these folks and we have a chance to talk about it, then I don't know what the words are going to be or what the actions are going to be, other than just maybe just put your arms around them and give them a great big giant hug and just, you know, hey, listen, you know, you're not alone. You're just not alone. You know, let's get through this together somehow. You know, we're still part of a community, whether we know each other directly or not. Somehow, some way, we're in this together, and we're feeling this together. And just know that you are
Right.
loved. You truly are
Yes.
loved.
Absolutely. And you know, details are still coming out. My hope is that this is not a targeted hate crime against
Well, the
a
thing is,
specific
right now, the
community.
last thing I read about it is being researched as a hate crime.
I hope it's not. I have been standing for all gender rights since 1983. When I was a child and my friends were starting to wake up to the world and become conscious of, you know, gender and sexuality and puberty and whatever else, people finally started talking about what their truth was, where they belonged, what fit for them. And many of them were severely bullied and made fun of and picked on. And I had just turned 11. It was within a couple of weeks of my 10th to 11th birthday, like just turning 11 from 10. And I saw this happening, and I started standing up for all gender rights, and not just standing up for it, but like fighting for it and standing up to the bullies and really getting involved. And right after that, then really getting involved in you know, a lot of things with AIDS benefits and research and things. And this was 1983.
You know, just real quick,
So-
I'm a straight man who's marched in the Pride Parade, okay? Because that's how much I believe in it. You know, I mean,
Right. Oh, yeah, we've been in many Pride parades.
my own father is gay, and I've known this since I was 11 years old, and I just completely never phased how much I love my dad. Never made a difference whatsoever. He was still my dad. You know, and people are people, and as I know so many wonderful people of so many walks of life. And I'll tell you right now, I don't mean to be sounding redundant, but I'm proud that I've walked in pride. I am very proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I met a friend of mine, we're still friends, in 1991 through DIFA, through our work with DIFA. And you know, I mean, this is decades. This is almost my entire lifespan of all gender rights, all human rights, not just some human rights, not just some religious rights, not just some far right rights, not just some far leftist rights. This is just being alive, the aliveness,
Being
the
free to
rights
be
of
who what you
aliveness.
are without hurting anybody.
Yeah, the rights of aliveness.
Right. That freedom, the freedom to be, you know, the freedom to be who and what you are. Always saying is there's only one thing. Don't hurt anybody over it. It's okay to be who and what you are. I mean, just let the beauty come shining through. I don't mean to sound kind of cliche, but then let that beauty, let that light that makes you, makes you special and unique, let that
Right.
shine.
And I get to make my own lifestyle choices. But that's not me dictating to somebody else what their lifestyle choices need to be. And a lot of people, they don't have a choice. And this is something some people just don't understand. There is no choice. Do you have a choice to eat food that day or not? Kind of. But you know, if you plan to stay alive, you might have to eat food. You know, you might want to hold your breath underwater, but some people choose to breathe. What kind of choice is that? It's still a choice. I get that. Now, which choice of those things are you going to make? Well, the same is true, right? Like, this is to be alive. This is the aliveness.
But you don't necessarily always choose who you're attracted to. That's the whole part of this. I mean, you feel what you feel naturally. If you're going to be honest and real with yourself,
No.
if you're a man who's attracted to a man, or a woman who's attracted to a woman, or trans, or whoever that may be, I mean,
Right.
be free to be that person and be yourself and love accordingly without judgment.
Right. And you know, I do a lot of disability work.
Right, of
And
course.
so my career is working specifically with autism, but working with intellectual, developmental, intellectual trauma disabilities. In that, for the autism population specifically, people with autism are 4 times more likely than neurotypicals to not be cisgender and not be heterosexual. 4 times more likely. It's because the nervous system develops differently. There are 88 keys on a piano. There are 86 gender markers. There is not just XXXY. Why does Fragile X even exist as a disability if it's just XXXY traditional? Like, there's a mutation, a broken branch on an X chromosome, making disabilities occur within that individual unique to that person. So if you're telling me that you can't have that happen, which is a noted disability, then you're telling me that gender markers as well can't really be altered, therefore you're invalidating a lot of disabilities. Think about that, because what happens is chromosomes, when they're altered, then we see these genetic traits show up, we see these predispositions, we also see disabilities, right?
Right.
That's where and how a lot of them happen. So if you're telling me that there's only XXXY and there's nothing else, like 84 other options that could occur, you're also telling me that there is no such thing as disability, or maybe just 2 disabilities of all these different gender markers and positionings of chromosomes and mutations and things that can happen genetically. So basically any genetic traits, there could only be 2. That's the same thing.
Sure.
Yeah, because right. Science just couldn't be right.
Well,
And logic just couldn't be logic.
Well, there's a lot of people trying to act like science it doesn't exist and science doesn't have merit. I mean, we've been through the whole COVID thing, and people so many trying that. We don't want to dive down that road, but come on. I mean, scientists have been like shunned and ridiculed over them presenting their very real findings through the hard work that they do to let us know the facts.
Right.
And in this context, you know, nature is not making any mistakes. God does not make mistakes.
No.
I don't want to get religion and all that context into this, but I mean, for a moment, if I may,
How do
God
we
loves
not?
all of his children. Everyone. No one's accepted. God loves everyone.
Yeah.
All of us.
We are
All of
rooted in
us.
love.
Unconditional.
We're
Pure
made
and
of
true.
love. That's right.
We are made of love at the core. The source is love.
That is how God designed us. That is how God created us. That is why
That is the
we
most
were
natural
thought
state
and
for us,
intention.
is in love.
Yeah,
There's nothing more natural for us than to love.
that's right.
I know, right?
When is love going to show up at the biggest possible scale?
On that worldwide scale. And we were kind of talking earlier about, you know, when did we experience that worldwide renaissance?
Yeah.
I mean, even Europe pulled itself out of the Dark Ages. And it wasn't like it's sort of like a slow transitional thing. It was almost sudden, it's like you go from the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, all of a sudden the Renaissance is happening.
Right.
People are waking up. Art, music, science, everything is moving forward at a very rapid pace. When do we get to experience that worldwide renaissance? And I know that we are definitely waiting for.
We are.
And this is part of what we do. Try to spark that renaissance somehow. So it's not just pockets of people anymore, but it's the whole world. Everybody's feeling it. Everybody's moving forward with it together. Knowing again, we're free to think and feel how we choose, but doing so without hurting each other.
That's right.
How better can we possibly grow as a people? I know we've all heard this statement, But there is one race on planet Earth, one race. That's the human race.
That's right. How do we show up for all beings, including ourselves?
Absolutely. That's where it starts. It's got to start with the individual, and then it ripples effects out to everyone else around us in our communities, in our states, in our countries, and
Right.
ultimately the world.
And how much harm is done when people speak and say that these mass shootings are insider jobs and come up with these conspiracies that discount
Right.
experiences of people who lived through it and the family members who lost family during these experiences, right? Like what does that look like? How many layers of harm are there? You know?
I can't
And
count,
thank
imagine.
God, thank
My
God
gosh.
at least one person was held accountable for that by law recently. But how many other people? You know, I mean, we have to stop doing harm.
That's the first thing. We gotta look and start taking care of each other. Stop hurting each other. Stop judging each other. Start taking care of each other, watching out for each other, having each other's backs.
Yes.
Not just in these little isolated communities, which I'm glad it exists. We're so grateful for the community she described just a little bit ago. We're super grateful, but it's got to go beyond that. I mean, like I said, when
Absolutely.
do we get to spark that worldwide renaissance where we all come together as one people all over the world?
Exactly. You know, we were talking earlier also last night. I'm sitting in my living room and watching one of my favorite movies. It was the movie about Mr. Rogers.
Aw,
Love Mr. Rogers.
absolutely.
Watching the movie and just, you know, feeling so deeply because the whole movie's about love and healing relationships and growing as individuals, but what it's like to really listen, right? What
Sure.
shows up when people listen and then love shows up.
Listen and try to
Right?
understand.
That's what the movie's about.
That's
So I'm sitting here quietly and just taking that in and living with an open heart and really feeling this lived experience of these individuals. And outside I start hearing bang, bang. And I go into panic mode. And it's not like an outward panic. It's like the internal, I can't breathe normal and my heart's racing and what in the world is happening and am I okay? And my experience goes back to my lived trauma with guns and irresponsible people having access to guns and what they've done with me. So my mind goes back to, 2 or 3 years ago. 2, 3, what? 2.5.
But for a moment,
It's-
you're wondering exactly what is it? Is that gunfire or is that
And
something else?
is it that person showing up with a gun? So I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and that happened to me 2 years ago. Yeah, this person
But
was.
it turned out to be fireworks, right? But you're for a moment you're processing. Oh my gosh, what's going on?
It took quite a while to
I've done
figure
that
out
too because of my
because
background.
it was bang, bang, and then like a pause, and then a couple of bangs, and then it was bang, brrr, you know. So it was like, okay, somebody has fireworks. I don't know why. That's really weird. But somebody has fireworks. I'm okay. But it took about 5 minutes to regulate, process, feel, and calm because there was a mass shooting the night before. I go back to trauma spaces with ex-husband with guns. It just, I had to feel, I had to breathe, I had to realize I was okay. And as I said, I wasn't panicking like outward. I wasn't raising my voice and being crazy.
But it still took a time
but
for you to
I was
process it.
paralyzed on the couch. I couldn't move. I froze. Instead of saying, oh, maybe I should move away from a window, I froze, which is not a good decision. I can make better decisions than that. But when when your autonomic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system are not functioning the way it would in a normal person's body, somebody who didn't have that kind of response, it's like, okay, well, I guess I still have more work to do around that, even though I thought I've done all this trauma work and I help people with trauma and I have done so much work around that I can really be effective helping people with that. You know, I'm human. I'm still going to go to those spaces sometimes.
Well, I can understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had experiences, and this goes back a long way
You've
in
had
my life. It's been a
experiences
long,
sometimes.
long time. But I've been around shootings, and I'm not gonna, I mean, I don't want to get into that part of my life. That's history now. But I've been around
You're
that, and
safe.
I have to admit that there's times where, like again, even around 4th of July, I know it's 4th of July. I know people are firing off fireworks, but every time I hear that pop, 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 there's a split second in my mind. I got to process: is that gunfire, or is that just fireworks, or is that just firecrackers, or whatever? And yes, you know, I get through it, and I'm fine. It's not like it takes away from my day, but there's always that moment where I just have to tense up and go, okay, no, it's all right, it's okay, it's all right. But I know
Yeah.
that if I'm doing that and you're doing that, so are a lot of other people like you. I'm sure there's a lot of people also processing similar things because of what you've been through. And even just hearing this stuff on the news all the time, I imagine even for those of you that are just witnessing it, hearing these stories at the party that just wonders too, is this happening in my town right now?
Right.
Maybe you're in school and you hear some cracks or something like that. And you're wondering, oh my gosh, is there something,
What is that?
somebody in my school or in my workplace?
Right.
And I mean, again, this is how this ripples effect out in a negative way, where it's creating harm.
It is.
And we want to have that
Right.
opposite effect. We're going to find a way to be able to feel safe on our streets, safe on our homes, safe in our communities. And know that, hey, when you hear that crack, 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 we know, all right, people are celebrating, it's 4th of July, or whatever the case may be. That's the reaction we should be having. Not, oh my gosh, what's going on? Oh, no, it's okay, we're
Yeah.
cool, we're cool.
But here's the other side of the fireworks too. Do we have so little violence in our world that we really have to reenact and recreate war just to celebrate our independence once a year, which literally means stolen land from indigenous people? What? That's what fireworks represent. They represent the reenactment of war, claiming a new land, right? Because land clearly never belonged to anybody else until Europeans got here. Ooh, glad that's settled. Because clearly that didn't involve any violence whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a whole other big long conversation
Exactly.
there.
So I'm like, do we really even need fireworks? Do we really have to reenact war?
Good question.
Is that necessary? And of course, we have the impact on wildlife, domestic animals, our family members. You know, Radix is right here asleep. But I mean, look at all these pieces. But especially wildlife. They don't know what's going on. There's a reason wildlife tends to react really detrimentally to the behavior of people reenacting war. Wonder why that would be. Let's think about that. Yeah.
And of course, getting back into the idea of, again, all these shootings that are taking place and all these people are being killed as a result of it. I mean, there's a lot of dark spots in just in our American history, not to mention the history all over the world, but gosh, there's some incredibly dark spots in that history. But you know, getting a little bit closer to our source here, I mean, again, these shootings and that children are involved, innocent people are involved. That just, again, even for everything that I've been through, and even some of the really, you know, the things that I've done that I'm not proud of, and I still can't, I can't wrap my mind around that. I don't even begin to understand the mindset or the kind of anger, the kind of whatever, even mental illness, whatever the case may be, that could set somebody off to think it's okay to walk into a nightclub or walk into a King Soopers or walk into a school with children and start firing off a gun. That
Right.
is, and again,
Or
how do
the
we prevent
ego.
this?
Just
The
ego.
preventative aspects of it.
Right.
That there are things that can be done, you know, between catching this and beforehand, recognizing there's a potential illness, there's a potential for this violence, a potential for this hate, before it manifests into something tragic like this.
Right. Right. And like we were talking earlier about ego state, where we see even celebrities like mimicking themselves on crosses or writing lyrics about how they're greater than Jesus or bigger than God, or I have more money than than God has, or whatever. And I'm thinking, what is the ego state of an individual where they are so broken and living in a lie, a falsehood, that they think they can compare themselves to the origin of love in the universe. And I feel like there are degrees and types, and I know that there are degrees and types of mental illness stating exactly the same thing of, I am so great, I am so powerful, I am so controlling that I can manipulate the lives of others around me, and I can hold the power because I hold the biggest weapon. It kind of goes back to that same imagery of the celebrity on the cross. It's the individual with the gun. It's the same thing to me. I'm like, no, you're not Jesus. No, you're not powerful. No, you're.
I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I know. I mean, anyone
you
who
know
really thinks about
love.
Jesus, but Jesus represents love.
Right, and that's why so many people
Jesus
use the iconography of
As
him
somebody
on the
who's
cross.
who's into history, I mean, Jesus was for everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
and all of those individuals that
Right.
you might term as ascended masters, they were not necessarily specific to just religions. They were here for the people, here to share love, to share that connection and bringing everyone together in that space of love.
Right.
That's what they represent, at least to me. That's what it means to me. When I think about
Exactly.
Jesus, when I think about Krishna, any
Yeah.
such individual along those lines, that's what it means to me. They represent love.
Right.
When I think about God, the source is love.
Right.
It is about oneness, bringing people together, being there for each other, helping each other. Like I say, having
Right.
each other's backs, lifting each other up.
Yeah.
Again, changing this world so we can, like I said, spark that renaissance that I know that's at least I know we're waiting for.
That's right. And very, very rarely do we see people like emulating themselves as Muhammad, or rarely do we see people emulating themselves as Buddha or any incarnation of Buddha. We don't see that as often, but we do see the image of Jesus on the cross a lot with celebrity. I'm not sure.
I think it's largely because
why is that
Christianity is,
specific.
of course, the biggest religion in America. So I mean that might be partly because of
But
where
these
we
aren't
live.
just
So, but
strictly U.S. artists. It's
yeah,
yeah.
the Western world, I guess, perhaps.
Right. So I don't know. It's
It just
interesting
gets
to
back
think
to
about
the
that.
idea of love. It's a simple thing. It's just finding a way. It's just find to love each other, be there for each other, watch out for each other,
That's right.
help each other, let each other be free to be who and what we are.
Mhm.
What is most natural for us,
Right.
no matter what that is. Again, without
Mhm.
hurting anyone, without hurting each other.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So, well, it's always we love the conversations.
We do.
And
We have a lot of love to give,
and we'll get into this more. I mean, I
and-
know we've been at this.
and let's talk about how you support people through trauma. Like what are the things that you do with breath work and with movement, with just talking, being present, and working in a somatic context?
Well, I mean, personally, this is, I guess, it's a number of different things. For me, I'm a martial artist and have been through pretty much my entire adult life. And it may almost seem counterintuitive. We were talking about this earlier, but a lot of my martial arts is meant for healing. I mean, what I love about
Yes.
the art that I'm in now is Kung Tao Silat de Tuars, is it's both external and internal. There is a Taoist quality. My teacher, even though he's from Java, Indonesia, he thinks of himself more, he's not religious at all, but a lot of his philosophies are very Taoist. And I think there's a lot of that quality of the balance of the external with the internal. So it is that movement. There's Tai Chi. We're not Tai Chi. We don't do Tai Chi, but it's part of our art. We're not Qigong, but this is part of what we do. Because it's all that, when you're moving energy, it's all that movement, it's all breath, it's all intention. And that intention can be, of course, as martial artists, you think of fighting and combat, but it's also healing. There's an expression, you can't be a true warrior unless you're also a healer. A warrior is not meant to be a bully. A warrior is not out there trying to go beating up people and trying to prove themselves. A warrior is a protector, a guide, sometimes even a mentor. So personally, whatever I feel in the moment, and a lot of times it's the simple stuff. It's having maybe that right word that comes to mind in the moment of talking to somebody. Like if I get a chance to see somebody who's been through this most recent shooting, do I find those right words, or is it maybe just a simple matter of just put my arms around them and hold them while they cry? It's just all about the intention behind the energy. And when you cry, of course, there's breath involved, there's intention involved. And in that moment, you hope there's also healing involved. And that's the intention for me behind it, is to help this person find a way through these traumas and find ways to hopefully heal from something that's, I mean, almost unhealable. I mean, you know, some of these tragedies, sometimes the best we can do is not necessarily so much you get over it, but you at least learn how to live with it, and even to the extent of maybe learning how to somehow make peace with it so you can move on with your life and still be happy in your life and still be loving in your life and not lose sight of that, especially if that's the kind of person that you already are, because these are the kind of experiences that can certainly diminish that inside of a person. And I'm protective in this way. When I meet people that have those beautiful qualities, I want to nurture that, especially when I know they've been through something as painful as something like a shooting, or painful as somebody knowing that they lost somebody in that shooting. You know, because that's what we're talking. I know there's a lot of other areas of this, but since we've been talking about, you know, these mass shootings right now, that would be my best approach, I think, to do that. I mean, I'm not a professional at this. I'm somebody who's just very, very intuitive. I had my own near-death experience many years ago. Now, it's 11 years ago. I guess it wasn't that many years ago. But my point is that just to show you that empathy, that as I've said before, and I'll say again, it's just, hey, listen, you're not alone. You know, there's somebody here that's thinking about you, that even from a distance is sending that love, sending that healing to you, and hoping you can find your way through this in some kind of a way that you can still come out as that loving, beautiful person that maybe you went into this with.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Can people schedule with you online for appointments to do movement and breath work together?
Well, I am a martial arts instructor, and I teach it in a lot of different ways. So what I do is individual training. So, I mean, I can be found on Facebook. Just look at my name, Rex Femfgeld, and I'm also on Instagram. Same thing, just look up like Rex Femfgeld or gravity.life. And, you know, we could potentially set up some personal sessions. We can have a consultation, find out what it is you're looking for. And even though I am a martial arts instructor, I have different students that are not necessarily into it strictly for the combat. They're into it for the movement, into the breath work. And a lot of what I like to do is, you know, open up those dialogues, open up conversations, so I give them an opportunity to talk about anything that might be going on in their life. It doesn't have to be something as extreme as a shooting, but whatever they're going on, whatever's happening in their life, you know, a chance is an outlet to talk about that, and then work out and train. I mean, anything that's exercise. I mean, even people that are just, I mean, I wouldn't say just lifting weights, but even that is a great outlet for people. That's what they're into. You know, in this particular case, I mean, I like to work from both the physical aspect, but also from the spiritual, mental, and emotional aspects as well. And how about you? This might be a good place to, I guess, outro this. So how about you? I mean, I know we talked a little bit about that earlier,
right. So my services, you can find my information at www.shanaboutte.com. That's SHANABOUTTE.com. And I offer many different healing modalities. You'll see a list of my credentials and also the services I provide. And then I also utilize trauma-informed yoga as a movement-based therapy, but I am a Reiki master and do energy
but
work.
I can vouch, she can move some energy. I mean, I've experienced this with her. She's an incredible healer, and I can say this from firsthand experience.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
And just, yeah, my website too, gravity.life, just like that, gravity.life, and you can get my email off of that and reach me there as well.
And then I also offer support for disabilities, a lot of talk sessions, and then coaching for disabilities, but other services too. So I'm a master life coach, and yeah, other things that you'll see when you check out the website, and nutrition support. Do work around gender dysmorphia, body dysmorphia, and a lot of work with sexuality, especially sexuality with disabilities. I've been doing that work for 17 years. Yeah, that's right. That's kind of a long time to really specifically dive into that. But yeah, I recognize that so many people I work with, as I said, they don't identify as cisgender, and they're not heterosexual. Many are asexual, and everything in between. Some are
all of which needs to be explored.
Hypersexualized.
Opportunity
all of it.
To communicate about that.
And people don't like to think of people with disabilities as being sexual beings, which they are. And
As human beings, we are sexual beings.
A lot of families don't want to look at it, think about it, talk about it. Then we also have the religious and cultural context of that. And a lot of young people are like, I can't talk about this at home. I can't talk about this with anyone. I can't bring this up to church, to leaders, to elders, to temple, to whatever. And can I talk to you? I'm like, absolutely. I'm here.
Without judgment,
no judgments
open-mindedness,
whatsoever.
open arms.
Yeah. So how do I teach people to not hurt themselves, not hurt others, not get arrested? You know, and how do we honor people where they are in their experience?
And teach them how to be the best version of themselves.
Absolutely.
Help them find their way.
Always we embrace what is and who is, and love unconditionally. So
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
thank you so much for your
I really
time.
hope you got something out of this. I know
Definitely.
we covered a lot of ground, as we oftentimes do, but just
Yeah.
thank you so much, and please reach out, seriously.
Please do. We're here for you. Have a beautiful day and take care.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.